So I actually was doing another practice this morning. So the only thing that's ringing in my head is I'm so I'm in a different place. I mean, there's something to chanting that quiets the mind and then empties the selfing mind. So the mind finds himself in a more spacious place than where when our thoughts are constantly like pressing in on us and we're unable to find that stillness out of which everything comes. When it talks about forming emptiness, it's going to start talking forming emptiness and emptiness being formed. And in the Dharma Sutra, we're asked to look at even the smallest speck of dust, and that speck then being divided and subdivided till there is like poop, there is nothing. There is nothing. This is, and how did that nothing become something? And so it begins to work with us on the appearances, the faulty appearances that we have, that there is actually something, not recognizing that it has come out of a unified field of no thingness. And when one really understands that, when we're going through something that's challenging to us, and we think that it's a real thing, then we can find some ease and some contentment. So today I'm going to talk about how to be content with the present moment, no matter what's going on. Can somebody let them know they're at the right door, they're heading back that way?
Good afternoon. Hello.
Incense burning, all things is filled with the fragrance. All summer from afar, all suspicious clouds gather everywhere. With utmost sincerity, all is of you. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the sacrifice and the Master. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the sacrifice and the Master. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattva's and the Mahasattva's. Today, in a very grounded space, a very pragmatic space, because Kay comes back today. So she's gone. It's like two teenage boys living in the apartment. We don't cleaning, we don't wash anything, we don't straighten up anything. We pull out all the books, they're all over the place. And she is such a neat freak. She's got everything in its place. And I took a look around as I was leaving, and said, Pundy, you have to work on this. I have something else I have to do. So, do things. So I'm checking my time. Yeah, but I said 5. I should have taken you up on your offer. Yeah, but I mean, I used to have, it's difficult to clean when you're in the 70s and 80s. Even vacuuming is difficult. So I got paid a housekeeper because I wasn't gonna do it. So I got paid housekeeper 2 times, and then I fired her. This Kay cleaned the whole house for the housekeeper to come clean the house. I said, well, you can't come in here and play like this. I'm like, okay. So you have to know your limitations. And it's true, we do have to know our limitations. We have to know when there is something that can be done by us and when there is not. But before we can know what can be done by us, we have to reckon with the present moment. We have to reckon with what has happened. Eckhart Tolle said, whatever the present moment contains, as if you had chosen it. Always work with it, not against it. Accept it as if, don't leave out as if you had chosen it. Because you'll come away with the wrong understanding, accepting it. To say that you brought this upon yourself, or that it's because of your thinking that this happened, because sometimes that's true, sometimes that's not true. We live according to the law of karma, so we know nothing can be happening except that the conditions that allow it to arise manifest. That's true, but you don't always create that condition. Sometimes you just happen to be in the wrong place when that has happened. So you are the beneficiary of it also. Understanding in those ways. So we start with a standard theme or way of looking at something. But then we have to be able to chop it up, divide it down, sift through it to come to a true understanding of what exactly is happening in this particular situation at this time. And that's the difference in like just knowing something and in having insight in cultivating prajna, so that one also has the capacity to plant the seeds in this moment that will change what's going to happen in the next moment, that will change the outcome. And that's where the power of the Dharma rests for us. Someone, Sada, got ordained a couple of weeks ago. 3 weeks, maybe even a month ago. Groundhog Day. I'm just biding my time, in sincere. But she loved to meditate. I mean, someone can sit for 5 hours without moving. And so the teacher that's working with her right now, I sent her up to learn the Vinaya, because she's going to be going to Cambodia. And in Cambodia, right now there was no Cambodian bhikkhuni female nun. There is one, but she's not in Cambodia. And Salah will be the second one. So there are a lot of forces coming against her based on the ignorance that nuns cannot become monastics, and nuns cannot attain. This is not for them. they died out in Cambodia. They were never there. So she's gonna have a very difficult road with it. And there are ways of viewing and understanding the monastic life as opposed to the lay life. So monks are held in high esteem. So there's a lot of bowing and there's a lot of adoration and it's a real dichotomy of living between the lay and the monastic life there. And for a woman to try to step into that arena is fraught with danger. So one has to be extremely wise. One has to be practical. One has to know when to advance and when to step back. You know, because her life could very well. So because I'm like more flexible and I dance on the edges, I felt that I needed to send her someplace where she could get some really, really strict what they expect training so that they can receive what she has to offer. If she can if she can enter into the society with a certain sweetness and with a certain value, yet with an inner wisdom that when there exists the opportunity, it can rise and speak to the people. So I got an email today, and the email said, "Oh, Sadar wants to stay 3 more months because we're going ready to do 3 months of nothing but silent meditation. We won't be talking at all." And the lay people, they don't have any Western lay people, but they have Filipino lay sangha who will come and they'll do everything, you know, for them. Every day they come, they cook, they bring food, and they clean, and they do everything. It's not like it's hard. But you gotta go find Westerners that really, you know, hold the Dharma in that way. But they embrace more merit making, and they feel like the more things they do, you know, that's how they get closer to the awakened mind, through merit making, where we think we get closer to it when we understand what it is and practice until we also have that mind. So they're 2 different views, you know, of how one advances on the path. And I think we could take a lot of that, and it would help us in terms of cultivating the heart and being positioned in a way that when the heart is open, the mind is clear, and a lot can drop in. We're used to struggling to understand something. And it's more of a matter of the opening of the heart for us. For them, heart is in a great place, but they need to open the mind and put it forth. So she's there with them, and now they said, can she stay for 3 months more because we're going to be doing this? So I wrote them back and I said, for 10 years, Sadar has been sitting in meditation, practicing emptiness. I said, now there are 2 kinds of emptiness. One is like a nothingness, that when you sit, you just drop and go off that chasm into the deep hole. Kind of like Rip Van Winkle. I swear that's a story about him. He said to meditate, and when he came out, it was 20 years later. So I know that a lot of us are familiar with that kind of emptiness, that kind of meditation, where you're sitting and everything is, you know, like starting, the voices are quieting down, the circumstances that were right in your face, they're retreating. One is beginning to feel copacetic. One is reclaiming their love for the world, friends and enemies. Boy, it's getting really good. This loving kindness and the other Brahma Viharas, we're like, we're definitely in the stream on the path leading upward. And the next thing you know, everything's starting to fall apart. And the next thing you know, you're waking up. And in that space between everything falling away and waking up, there was sleep. So that's not the kind of intimacy that the Buddha talked about, because he talked about the brightness and the crystal clarity when he was in that deep state. And that means that there was an awakeness, but yet the sense of the personal self and the personal self needs wafted away. And so something is a little bit off with our meditating in this way. We're looking for signs, and actually trying to make our mind meet those signs to say, oh, I'm in the first jhana, I'm in the second jhana, I'm in the, fourth jhana. And I want to say come back from all of that. So let me finish my story with Sada. I said, Sada, for the last 10 years, has been sitting. But her mind is dull because she never had proper instruction around sitting. So number one, she needs proper instruction around sitting until she can sit and the mind stays alert. And if the mind starts to get groggy, he said, get up. He said, get a drink of water. He said, move your limbs. Although we have a notion that if you're sitting, the first one to move, like they have no practice. But it's really about recognizing what state the mind is in and whether it is bright and alert, or whether along with the body. So the notion of relaxing and letting go, I never give that part. I didn't see anywhere in there where he said, relax and just let go. He said, ardent and alert. Those are the words. Ardency implies a certain energy, a certain amount of energy is aroused. It can't be too much, or we move into some anxiety, some anxiousness, So the whole time we're in there, we're modulating. We're checking out energy. We're feeling into where we are and how we are at the moment. And it's a training ground so that when we are out and about in the world, we can know through our training how we are in every moment. When we're handling the vicissitudes of life, when we're dealing with things that have to be dealt with. So that's a training. It's not where we live, we train in that so we can live. And if we lose sight of that, and we think that meditation is all there is, and it's the highest and best, it is a training vehicle that enables us to live in a world that's dependent on God. That's the only out we have while we're still breathing. When we're dead, we're dead. But while we're still breathing, that's the only out we have. A place of security, a place of serenity, a place of abounding joy, even in the outward face of conflict, of loss, of grief, even anger. Anger is a tough one. I mean, even grief, you understand. But anger doesn't leave any space for understanding. Anger is worse even than sorrow. And both of them lead to despair. So today, it really talk about how not to be in despair around anything that's going on in your life that's not the way you want. And how not to be too happy about anything going on in your life and it's just the way you want it. Because impermanence is the base of that. Now, he said, if there, whatever we recognize as being present, the middle way says there is also the opposite. So when the Buddha speaks of overcoming impermanence, awakening to the truth of impermanence sets up a notion that there is something that is permanent. He wasn't saying that when we step out of this world of impermanence, that there is nothing. Because he said that would be nihilism. He said, that's not what I teach. So if we think that we missed it, we need to make a U-turn. I don't care who's been teaching. I don't care how long they've been teaching. I don't care who first translated it into English text. I don't care who translated the Pali, which wasn't even really a language, into a language. And he said, I do not teach. There is nothing. And if we really knew that, we wouldn't struggle so hard against letting go of the tightness in which we hold our minds and the tightness in which we hold our hearts. Because we can know that there was something deeper that he said could be reliable. But we have to be at the right intersection to encounter it. And so sometimes that means if in 15 or 20 or 30 years of our practicing in the way that we know is right, that we haven't encountered, maybe we should open up ears to something else, because most of us don't have that many more years to add on in our same way. So we need a quick path there, because we're taking the slow path for a very long time. And sometimes we have 90% of the ingredients to make something. We can have 95%. Actually, we can have all but one ingredient. And without that, you won't have what you're trying to make. So it's not like, there's a song that we used to sing in the church, say, Lord, I'm running, trying to make 100. 99 and a half just won't do. Say, it won't do. It won't do. So it doesn't mean we have to have 100% of everything, but whatever we have, whatever limited amount we have, get 100% of that. And you still have 100%. So you have to learn every Dharma ever uttered, but learn one really, really good. And it will lead you. Okay, that's fortune. It will take you, it will open up for you a space. But don't take it a third of this, a quarter of that, half of this. Start with something and work it really. You'll see, you will taste the food. Sweetness. When you've mastered that one, take another and another. After a while, like pearls, you string them into a beautiful necklace. So I said, so Saga has been practicing sitting all of these years. Just like kind of like this. No, that's it. She needs to learn the Dharma. She needs to learn the Dharma. And I say that not only that, I said we practice a little differently now because we learned about secret ingredient through the Mahamudra of the. But just as one is saying, abandoning grief and covetousness for the world, because that was the instruction. And considering what creates the world for us. The elements of air, fire, water, space. And how you could do anything and those elements are not offended, they're not humiliated, they're not disgusted. That we are formed of those elements, but we are so easily affected. We're easily humiliated, we're easily disgusted, we're easily, that's where we're out of line. Without humility. And so we sit there, we work. So let your meditation be like this. And this was an instruction for how to do mindfulness. How to practice mindfulness. He started with that. Because in order to inherit the kind of mindfulness that he's talking about, you can't bring your ordinary mind and access. So first, he talks about stepping away from your ordinary mind. And after you get good at doing this sitting on the pillow, you'll be able to do it when you're standing, when you're walking, when you're interacting. And if you aren't able to do it, you'll know that you're not doing it. And it gives you an opportunity to get back in the game. Get back on the game. There's a Chinese chant we used to do it. I can't remember the chant. It was so beautiful. All I remember was get back on the path. Get back on the path. So when I was working with that particular study and that chant, I must have recognized how often I step off the path because all it kept stuck in my mind was get back on the path. Get back on the path. And that's what I say to myself when selfing arises, when Panwadi mind starts to, get in there, and Panwadi mind is when one is making a decision and you're also considering how it affects you. like mostly is this good for me? If so, then let's go to the next step of looking at this. But it kind of starts with the me thing. And when one recognizes that, one can know that they're in like this. And if you keep challenging yourself when that arises, you keep first looking to see it because it's, we are so alive. We're so set in our pattern that we can hardly even see. And if it's brought to our attention, the first thing is the defense. No, I was thinking about, what's best for everybody. I gave a Dharma talk yesterday, and I didn't think that it was going to go well, but it was the one that I had to give to offer, and I was really surprised, all of the emails and that I got about it. And when you make your remarks on like a Zoom link, and you don't really have to be known out there in the world. That's why I say anything you want to say, because you're not close enough, or they're not close enough to you for you to grab them. So they just say anything to you, but nobody did. And I was so happy because I was beginning to wonder, have we, with our Western slant on Buddhism, completely wrong? It's not that. A sublime teaching that the truth lift us out of the infinite. Because we pick little pieces and strung together. A philosophy. Added a few things into the mix because we didn't think it was good enough. And doing wrong. So much so that we can't. It'd be too dangerous. To speak before. And so that's what I put out there, because this was a conference on justice and on, equality. And it was on all of these things, and we've been 3 years in the planning of it. I'm on the steering committee, and I'm like, if we have a Buddhist conference, I think if we did more talking about what the Buddha said, the teachers would go away with more to work with, So I don't know why I'm even on this panel. I don't know why I'm on this steering committee, because y'all not listening to me. And every year, it's held every 2 or 3 years. And every 2 or 3 years, I think for like about 9 or 12 years, I've gone to them. And it started with a little bit of Dharma, but you gotta be careful because we have all the intellectual time, we don't want more than what Buddha said. So, we have to have things that are pertinent to their fields of expertise and stuff like that. And so over the years, they morphed into something extremely secular until we only had one speaker, that's the keynote speaker, who was all the other workshops and all the other plenary sessions were from professionals, who have their learning in other things. And then last year, we didn't even have a Buddhist leader as the keynote speaker. So I was concerned about what would happen this year, and I was sure that this last year, I'll be on the steering committee. But there were some wonderful guys. They were so wonderful. We have 60 teachers on the panel over these 5 days. And they were so wonderful. But to me, the best lecture of all was Bhikkhu Bodhi's lecture. I'm telling you, you know how I feel about scholars, right? But I tell you that Bhikkhu Bodhi is, I no longer consider him a scholar. No, Bhikkhu Bodhi is a deep practitioner who can speak to scholars in their language. And that's the difference. And he talked about what needs to happen, that it's not too late to turn things around in the world. But if we're looking at it as too late, then it's too late. It's already too late. And he talked about what it was going to take And he said, Buddhists can't do it. You know, we can't do it alone. We have to get together with people and we form some projects, programs, and we went on and talked about that. And then it was my turn to speak. I said, I love Rick Bowden, you know, that he was on. I said, I'm glad you're on the call, so I'd be writing him, telling him I was talking about him behind his back. You'll hear what I'm saying straight up. And I said, but I'm wondering, are we, because the title of my talk is, are we still sowing the same seeds of stuff? And I propose that we Buddhists can do it. I'm reminded of the story. You can take it as real or you can take it as an allegory. Doesn't matter, because the mind doesn't really know whether something's real or whether it's memorized. And so there was a story of Gideon. He had to go up to battle. And the army had 100,000 soldiers, I think it was. Gideon had an army of 38,000. Like, that's already not enough. And he was praying like, God, what do I need to do? And God said, you got too many, you need to send some of them home. He said, so go and tell them all you who really don't have a heart to fight, who really don't have the zeal, who don't have an aspiration for the victory, you can go on home to your family. And a whole bunch of them left, most of them left. And Gideon was left with a small number. I think it was something like, I should have read the story. It was going from a 35-year memory, but he had something like maybe 3,000. Now, like most of them left, and that was about 3,000. And then God said, you still got to get it. He said, take them down to the water hole and have them drink, and then just observe. And the ones who go down to the water hole and they put their heads in and then just drink because they're thirsty, he said, send them back. But the ones who go down and very cautiously, they drink, but they're looking left, right, and they're looking left as they drink. He said, keep those. And so Gideon sent them down to the water. And he looked, and out of the whatever, 2,000 had that, something like that. It was left with a few hundred. He said, now you have the ones who can remember that. And they went out against that army, and they prevailed. And so in our commentary, in our Christian commentary, they said, why do you think that God did that with Gideon? And the answer that they give us is so that we would know that the battle and the victory is the Lord's. Okay, and that's okay if that's how they see it, and if they hold and embrace, you know, the triumph, the accomplishment of another. But in our dominant discipline, we teach that we ourselves can inherit, can gain mastery, can actually have the accomplishment, that same accomplishment. And so I said, maybe we have failed the Western Song, because when they didn't like the teaching, the bar seemed too high, we just lowered it. And we talk all of this talk about emptiness and all of this empty talk about getting enlightened, extreme entry, blah, 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 blah. But the actions that are required to realize that, we don't do good right now. So all this talk we had over the last few days about, one statistic that was really frightening to me was that one female in India, and they have a billion plus population. One female per hour is killed because the parents couldn't make good on the dowry. And so the punishment for that is they kill the wife and they just go get another one. And they talked about all of the things that are happening where people don't have and how there needs to be a redistribution of wealth. And so I said, well, then my question is, if there has to be a redistribution of wealth, where does that start? That starts next door, right? None of us want that to start at our door. We're not trying to redistribute anything. And that's where our problems lie. And our wanting the world to be different. But for it to be different, it's going to be hard. And while we start with a big army that says, I'll go, we really ask the question, some of us, our heart's not really in it. We said, "See." And then for some, our heart is in it, but we don't have the skills. We haven't developed the skills to say, send it back and take the few who's left. Now, what happens when there are many people to work with the ragtag army? There's some people who can work with those who are more committed, and that there are none who can work with those who are armed. What happens is that in time there will be no one to bring the masses of people. So it starts with knowing what we can do and what we can't, what we're willing to do and what we're not willing to do. What seems right and fitting for us to do and what doesn't. It starts with cultivating and developing a mind that doesn't just say, I think all people are equal, but treat others exactly like you want. And who want for others exactly what you have for yourself. And who are willing to create a space of equality between self and others. Now, there are not many people that can do that. And so ones who can't do it begin to teach them. And those that come after them, because the energy that they've been filled with this energy never come even to their own full maturation. That's the state of peace in this country. We want to fix everything out there. Just don't let it come across the threshold. Why? And until our mind changes, we honestly cannot call ourselves disciples. You can say I'm interested in the Dharma and some of the things that he said, but we shouldn't fool ourselves. Maybe aspiring to be disciples, And if we leave that word aspiring in there, then maybe we will step into it at some point. So now you can imagine, like hundreds of people on this call, this is not the kind of conversation or talk they want to have. This is not one where we can chit chat about our remedies and all this and all that. Yeah, but that was it. So I'm trying to encourage you today to recognize that the ones that we admire as accomplished, as brightnesses in the world, we have to aspire to have that kind of mind. That's the first step. And then when the challenges come and the question is raised that there's something that needs to be done, who will go? Who will do it? One can say, send me. And it be a real. So I'm 71. Kennedy was 80. And he took the best care of his mind and body of anybody I know. And that's the truth. I mean, long before he got involved in the drama. He was in the internal arts, and he was in all of those health things. And that man would carry his pots and pans around with him in the car, so that if you invited him for dinner, he'd come with his pots and pans and say, "You mind me cooking my dishes?" Because he didn't know where theirs had been or what had been cooked in them before. He was so exacting about everything. And he had all these concoctions, these health things, and even he cannot outrun old age and sickness and death. So I think, like, I've lived like Lucy Goosey. And I'm 71, so I'm liable to fall apart any minute. No, we're not gonna take 10 more years, but I'll be any minute. And I want these things. Have a long life. So we're moving into a new season. And some of the teachings are going to be hard, but I want you to know before I move. It would be a shame not to share. Who knows who might take up something and step out of the lineage of the ordinary man and take up the lineage. I don't know. But all I have, I should do. And so I know you've noticed over the past few months that the sharing the shift, and it's shifting even more. Because we're living in time that what we do today is going to determine whether there is some could say, okay, so then that's the end of Sarah. But it's not. And most people need more time to qualify. to be in other realms. But know that there is. Where there is no sorrow now, or this. And it's not a physical place, the way we do it, physicality. That's why when we get into certain mental states, we can catch it. So whatever the present moment contains, have a mind willing to accept it as if we have chosen. Because what we want can only come to fruition by working with what is present. When we push it away, we're moving in the wrong. But when we can work with what is present, we create the potential for unlimited. And that's because when we have aversion, we've already fixed it in our mind that there's no way out of this. This is bad. It has a bad outcome. But when we can embrace it and say, oh, this is here. And we can accept that it is here, then without having a negative mind towards what is here, because we already think that it only leads to that, we can begin to see other possibilities, other avenues, other places. We start to bring into the present moment all the other things that we know, and leave some room for things we don't know. And in that space of whatever happened, we see that nothing more than as a catalyst for change. And sometimes when we encounter something that's unpleasant, and then we go back and look years later and say, oh, that was the best thing that happened to me. And that could be getting something or losing something. It's not whether we're getting or losing. Or it could be whether we were getting someone or losing someone. But all we could see was one negative way that impacted. But if we can develop that spaciousness, it says, give me 10,000 outcomes. So there's nothing to look for them. I'm gonna hold out for them. I'm waiting for the best one. Because it is possible. That's something good is happening right now. And that's if we plant the seeds of goodness. If you haven't, start thinking. The cast of bread comes forth through. And it will be true. And most of them, we like to leave it like that. But they said in many days. That means don't be too anxious. Just constantly sowing. And knowing that the fruit of the harvest is already Let's see. Maybe we will have to keep coming on. Yes. We have quick ceremony if most people today. Akashimani. Akashimani has been in health for over a year. 1 year.
Were you Dharma practitioner?
No. And what a fine Dharma practitioner. What's the matter for you? And so this was a whole new world for her. But halfway in the process, she decided she wanted to go a little deeper into the inquiry, and she took temporary robes, and she's leaving on early Tuesday morning, and she's giving her robes back now, and she is keeping the vows. I'm gonna read it. Yeah. Me too. I'd rather have people who don't know nothing about Dharma. You don't have to you don't have to get rid of some stuff, some views that they have. Like tell me anything. Just kidding. But you have been wonderful. So what you would say?
Before I do this? I do Oh, wow. I'm usually not super anxious in front of an audience, but anyway, yeah, I've been here for a year. Wow, I don't know what to say. I have really enjoyed my time. I did, as Venerable said, I was, or as I shared, I wasn't a Dharma practitioner before I came. I had been going to some local sanghas and, meditating and thinking that was the practice. And we shared it's much deeper, but as people were talking about suttas and things like that, I'm like, huh, what's that? So I wanted to get a little deeper into understanding what I was actually practicing, where, does meditation come from and what's the deeper meaning behind it and what are the other practices as well. And I think it was definitely meant to be for me to meet Venerable on the path because I had been listening to her in different Dharma talks online for a while and was not only attracted to Heartwood, but also to another center in this Louisiana or Mississippi that she's also connected to. So it just kind of made sense. And also having some tangentially related to Buddha Master and kind of, so I think it all was meant to be for me to come here and really dive into Dharma and get the understanding that I needed. But it's been great. The journey continues. I'm not leaving the Sangha necessarily, but I won't be here physically. But yeah, so I'm just really grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for my brothers and sisters along the path, and it's just been wonderful. So I thank you all so much for just being so amazing in your own right, but also very supportive of our Sangha and our community as well. So thank you.
So you have to know that in gymnastics, we don't have a lot of things, so we like really lost over roads. I know somebody's going to be trying to lead through this. And somebody's like, oh, I need to get help. I need to get help. So that's what just wanted to just say. We're still working on some things.
I offer back my monastic robes and my monastic vows. And I wish to take up the way life.
Okay, so you've been on written that tonight.
Okay.
that's them, but then that's not them in our words, so. So I can accept that. I vow to avoid killing.
I vow to avoid killing living things.
I vow to avoid taking life.
I vow to avoid taking what's not given.
I vow to avoid sensualness.
I vow to avoid sensual misconduct.
I vow to avoid false speech.
I vow to avoid false speech. I vow to avoid malicious speech.
I vow to avoid harsh speech.
I vow to avoid harsh speech. I vow to avoid gossip. I vow to avoid covetousness. Covetousness.
I vow to avoid ill will.
I vow to avoid ill will.
I vow to avoid
I vow to avoid wrongdoing.
And so that third vow was, when you took me and asked me about what you were here, so, you were celibate. This release of you from celibate, but we make it a larger scope, sensualness. You've been careful what you, let your eyes continually look for what you listen to, or taste, or touch, or smell. And particularly for you straining the sense so that you can stay in the pain. If you find that you get off, get back. Thank you.